Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about an idea, a form of gaming that kind of just popped into my head as I was, kind of just exploring a lot of gaming news this week and all that stuff. And it's cloud gaming or streaming your video games. For those of you who are unaware of, I guess, what that is or what that concept is, you might remember or know Xbox Cloud Gaming, something like GeForce Now, or most infamously, I guess, and maybe famously, Google Stadia. Those are some of the more popular and well-known services when it comes to cloud gaming. And essentially, the idea of cloud gaming and streaming your video games is you don't buy or own or download a video game anymore. You essentially sign up for a service like Google Stadia, like Xbox Cloud Gaming, for example. You select a game from their catalog that you want to play. And instead of having to, like, you sign up and you pay for the subscription usually, but you select the game and you don't have to buy the game, kind of like Game Pass basically, which is kind of somewhat integrated into that. But like that, you don't buy the game, it's just the catalog of games. You select which one you want to play, and then you just start playing. You click it and you load into the game as if, the same way you load into any other game you've ever played, any other game that you've ever owned and owned and bought and downloaded and have ready to go. It's just a seamless experience, or that's the idea, anyways. And you don't have to buy the game, you don't have to download the game, and you don't have to update the game continuously. You just have to have access and buy the subscription service to the thing, and then have access to that, and you're up and running. That's the idea of cloud gaming or streaming your video games on those services. And it's been something that obviously Xbox taken a lot of particular interest in recently. Google threw their hat in the ring a little too early, in my opinion, but just in general, very heavily, and it failed pretty big. GeForce Now is something that's been around for a bit, not a hugely popular service for a lot of different reasons. And we'll get into that. Not necessarily GeForce Experience or GeForce Now's fault or anything. I think it honestly is a suitable services for some niche use cases and people, kind of like Xbox Cloud Gaming is currently. But we'll get into why. I haven't decided what I'm going to title a video. Is cloud gaming going to be the future, or why cloud gaming is not going to be the future? But as you can tell from that sentence, I don't think cloud gaming or streaming your video games is ever going to be the future of gaming. I don't think it's going to be a big part of gaming. I think somewhat similar to the VR video I did recently, if you follow the channel, I think it'll have its place in gaming. It'll be a piece of the puzzle and a niche kind of market. But I don't think cloud gaming and those services will ever be a substantial or main or major part of gaming and the ecosystem and the community. On the surface level, it sounds very appealing. I don't have to buy any more games. I don't have to download any more games. I don't have to update any more games. I can access any game on their service, and hopefully it's good. Obviously, that's the idea. It has a lot of games instantly without any hassle and just start playing. Not even plug and play because you don't even need. Yeah, another benefit is wouldn't necessarily need an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch or a gaming PC to play video games anymore. You could use any PC. You could use a smart TV, your phone or iPad, your laptop. Really, any game, any type of device like that, you could theoretically use or you could also use a console theoretically as well. But you wouldn't need to buy like a $500 video game console, and you wouldn't need to buy games or download games or update games. That's the big appeal for streaming and cloud gaming. The problem is, and why I don't think this, on paper, on surface level, amazing service is ever going to be a major part of gaming, what's going to hold it back, why I don't think it's a good solution, is the bottlenecks are just far, far, far too prevalent. And not just in the past, not just now, but also will essentially always be there. And some of the bigger issues with cloud gaming are always going to be there. And some of them you can't even mitigate or get rid of ever just because of the nature of the service itself. And we'll get into that now that we've gone over the concept and the pros and cons, or not the pros so far, of cloud gaming. What am I talking about? Well, first of all, the obvious and the major drawback that everybody talks about, that everybody has with cloud gaming and stuff, is kind of twofold, but it's essentially just connection and input latency and lag and stuff like that. That's essentially the major issues with cloud gaming right now, and that's a big reason why Google Stadia failed as well. streaming your games is incredible, or cloud gaming is incredibly intensive on and reliant on your Wi-Fi connection as well as server access, which is a thing that people a lot of people kind of glaze or gloss over. Yes, you need great Wi-Fi. You need really good Wi-Fi, and that's a big piece of the puzzle, which is already a huge problem because not a lot of people have access to or can afford top-end Wi-Fi that can really support good game streaming, or just a lot of times just streaming or gaming in general. A lot of times is already a problem. But even for those who can, it's not just about Wi-Fi. It's also about proximity to a major server farm where these games are being streamed from. Because unlike something like, I guess, a PlayStation Portal or something, where it's streaming from your game console, these aren't streaming from your game. Like you're playing this on your smart TV. These are being streamed from a major like server farm and data center by whatever company is hosting your service. So say it's like Microsoft or something, or it's Google or something. Whoever is using the service, or whoever service you're using, if you're not in a major city that has a major data center and server farm, something like a Chicago, for example, is a big, especially for central zone gamers. If you're not in Chicago or around Chicago or Illinois or something, your latency is going to be suffering no matter how good of Wi-Fi you have. The further, like if you're in like Arkansas or something, for example, or maybe you're in Alaska, maybe you're in, I don't know about Alaska and Hawaii, maybe they have their own small things because of the distance, but I don't know. Just on a base level, I'd imagine that might be a bit of an issue. Um, Maybe you're in like Minnesota or something, or maybe you're in, I don't know, fucking Mississippi and stuff like that. Places where you're not like next to a major data center like that, or not even in the same state or state over, two states over, you're going to suffer no matter how bad or good your Wi-Fi is. Wi-Fi is only a part of the piece of the puzzle here. You need good Wi-Fi, good top-end Wi-Fi. You need some proximity to a major data center and server where your games are actually going to be streamed from, and then only will you actually have a decent experience. But even then, and this is a niche thing, but the games, even in the perfect setup, in like you live right in Chicago, next to the even next to the data center, maybe you have amazing Wi-Fi and a great setup and everything. Even then, it's never going to be just quite as good as like just physically downloading a game and playing it off your console or your PC, which really only matters for like top end gaming and competitive gaming and stuff. But that's also something to take into consideration. It's never going to be absolutely just as good. And yeah, I kind of glossed over that like it wasn't a big deal, but those two gaps of the server, the server center distances, as well as good access to top end Wi-Fi, are huge barriers to entry and huge handicaps that really, especially when you talk about globally, across the globe, internationally, across every country, is going to be something that is probably going to be a handicap to cloud gaming really forever. It can be mitigated in some areas in major population centers for sure, but that's about it. That's all. That's the max it'll get to. And for some, that's why I said that it'll play a niche role and a small role in the gaming community. Because if you are in New York, if you are in Chicago or something like that, or London, I don't know about the European servers or data centers, but London, I'd have to imagine, right? Sure, maybe this could be a good appeal for casual gamers who don't want to buy all these games, don't want to download and update and have these consoles and everything. That's I think the best use case for cloud gaming. But outside of that, you're running into major problems where it just doesn't work for a lot of people outside of them. And even for the people it does work, let's get into some other issues of cloud gaming and why people are kind of turned off by it in a lot of regards, even outside of the Wi-Fi and the data center and server distance and everything, but just enable you to play the game or not. I know for me, I'm not going to divulge my exact location, but even for me, I can tell you I don't live in a massive population center with amazing access and proximity to one of these centers with top end. Like my Wi-Fi is okay, but it's not like amazing out of this world. Cloud gaming and like streaming games, I've tried it before on my Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription. It just straight up doesn't work. Like the best case scenario for me is the game loads and runs at like 5 frames per second. That's the best case scenario for me. I tried it on Indiana Jones and the Golden Circle or whatever, like that game didn't really work in any meaningful way. And that's just the reality of the situation for people like me. And it really, even if I had the best Wi-Fi setup of all time, I don't like live right next to a data center. It's always going to be a little worse for me, no matter how much I try to mitigate it. But yeah, even moving on to some things that don't affect those two. Firstly, is the services themselves have to be good and competitively priced, and have a good catalog of games, which is a major hurdle. You know, I've mentioned Google Stadia several times in this video. It wasn't just that they were too early, and not even a lot of major population centers it didn't work, and the Wi-Fi and the centers and everything just weren't compatible. It's not even just that. Google Stadia, their service is a paid service, by the way, wasn't exactly incredibly cheap for what you were getting. The price was okay, I guess, if you're really into that type of service, but even then, for a lot of people, the value just wasn't there, mainly because the games. It's not like don't think that you can access and stream every game just because you have access to this like type of gaming doesn't mean you can stream any and every game you want. It has to be on one of these catalogs that you're paying for. And the reality of the situation, I think Xbox probably has the best catalog right now. But the reality of the situation is Google Stadia and a lot of these services just don't have amazing cloud streaming like catalogs. Like going back to Google Stadia, what was their big seller games? Like I think their big like launch games, the launch catalog. I mean, maybe it's better than Nintendo Switch 2 catalog, but it's not saying much at launch. Um, their big launch catalogs was, I believe, like an Assassin's Creed game. I think it was maybe Odyssey at that point or Origins. I can't remember the exact year where everything was happening, but I feel like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and like We Happy Few were like the big launch games in catalog, and maybe Anthem at that point. I can't. I don't know why I'm thinking of Anthem, but I think maybe that was on the catalog as well. That was like their big launch catalog. So even if the service worked for you, which is a very big if, it wasn't priced reasonably, especially for what they're offering, and what they were offering wasn't a lot of great games. Even if you wanted to play We Happy Few or Assassin's Creed Odyssey or something, are you going to pay an entire service that doesn't work incredibly well to play those two games that you don't even own or get to keep or anything after that service is done? No, and that segues into another part. Even if you have one of these subscription services, you're okay with paying it, you're okay with the game catalog. You don't own any of these games. Similar to why a lot of people have gotten mad about Nintendo and what they're doing and the rise of digital gaming. Like cloud gaming, digital gaming is a very convenient thing, often sometimes priced better as well, very convenient and just nice to have. But people are in some areas kind of trying to go back to a little physical because companies like Nintendo, even physical copies, you don't necessarily own your game. And it's this idea of preserving your right to ownership as well as preserving the game and everything that people are really concerned about, are starting to be concerned about anyways these days. And that you don't really own anything. And the same thing is here. Like sure, you don't have to buy it, you don't have to download it, you don't have to update it. And that's the counter argument to it. But you don't own any of these games. You don't like after that subscription ends, if you cancel it or you can't afford it anymore or whatever, you don't get any of those games with you. You don't own any of those games after that. You just don't have access to any games, especially if that's your only really form of gaming there and only thing. Jesus, I'm bad at aiming. I'm watching this video as we're recording it. I'm bad at aiming. It looks like I'm fucking, having some latency in cloud gaming there with how bad I am behind her. But it is what it is. But you don't own anything. That's another major issue, other than the fucking controller you have that you play with it, I guess, I don't know, in the headset or something. On top of that, you don't own like the console or the platform that you're playing your games on. Because like the idea is like, oh, you don't need a game console or gaming PC. It's what a lot of people like having a device that plays games for them outside of cloud gaming services. So you don't own that. You don't own the games or anything. And another big issue, even if the service works well and you're okay with it and it's nice or something, what happens if the internet's not working or the servers are down or something? You just don't have access to any of the games you want to play. You can't play any of them offline. You don't have any physical copies of them. It's all contingent on the internet and the server being up and running well. And if that's not the case, which happens more often than you think, not like a ton, but like more often than you'd like for it to be your main like service, you're shit out of luck. You can't play any of your games. No matter if they're online based or not, you can't play any of your games. Whether they're just like offline games, you can't play any of your games anymore. So you're just completely locked out. And that's another thing that's, been on the rise of people don't like how everything's connected to the internet and needs an internet connection and everything to be able to play. People had a lot of, question marks about why the PlayStation 5 disk drive needed to have an internet connection, meaning can I not play like physical game copies I have of single player offline games offline when my like internet is down and the PlayStation servers are down? So people have issues with that already, but that's another thing that cloud gaming, doesn't exactly have going for it, is that those servers are internet down, you can't really play any of your games. So there's a lot of glaring issues with cloud gaming, both both with the connection, with like the Wi-Fi and the network issues, and on top of it, on just like a more of a deeper and personal level, with no ownership, not having access to games and stuff, not owning stuff. That's another issue that a lot of people have. And again, going back to the thing is, not a lot of these services are currently or really ever going to have such an extensive catalog and like really bang for your buck and everything and be awesome to the point where you really like. I know most people would rather just have like Xbox Game Pass and not cloud game really on it much, or just, have access or buy the games themselves or something. And what? Sorry for that delay, but anyways, or sorry for that cut and everything. Something walked in, but yeah, even on top of that, the appeal for a lot of services really just isn't there in a lot of people's minds. It just really isn't uh, appealing to a lot of people, even if it does work. And I know a lot of people would rather just keep gaming the way they currently game. From a price benefit, it's like, oh, another big thing is like, oh, it's cheaper, especially up front than like a gaming PC or a console. It's like, yeah, maybe, but like over time, you're paying for a subscription month after month, or year after year. That adds up eventually. Where like PC gaming, if you're on Steam primarily as your main thing, like it's probably more expensive up front, but those games and no subscription service or online service probably adds up over time and evens out anyways. And you get to own your games, actually buy them and have them and everything. So it's like, I don't know. A lot of people don't really have a lot of appeal for it, even on a surface level, even if it did work really well. So, yeah, there's just a lot of issues with it. I don't think cloud gaming will ever be a mainstay or a major part of gaming, especially outside of major population centers. But even then, I think a lot of people won't really be super interested in it. But yeah, that's my thoughts and take on cloud gaming. Let me know what y'all think about it in the comments down below. I'd love to hear that. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video and channel, like and subscribe definitely helps out. And I'll see y'all in the next one.